a link on the chat where there are some common questions, and let me know when you opened it on your browser, and then I'll start the poll.
Should I open it?
Yeah, you both can open it.
Yeah, I have.
You have it, Syed?
Yes, it's opening.
Okay. I actually wanted to start with name, and if there are other suggestions, I'll be open for any names. I just wanted to give it a name so that it makes sense to other people also when we talk about these kind of meetings. So these were just names that came to my mind, and you'll see some options on your screen right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so does any of those make sense?
So I've switched on to the second one, meeting frequency. I don't know. It just went.
Okay, so let me stop
Can
it
you?
and start it again.
Yeah.
Okay, that is it. What is this?
I mean, I'm good to go with the first one. This is nice.
Yeah, you can choose that,
Okay.
and we'll see the results here.
But how to choose? There is no options.
There's no option to choose.
No. It's showing some 0, 0, and 0. In four, there are 4.
Yeah. How to choose it? I mean, clicking on it, but.
So you are seeing this, right?
Yeah.
So when you click on one of those, it'll
No.
turn into blue.
It's not showing the screen.
Okay, so let me give you this link. Maybe that link is not working. Okay, where is it? Yeah, can you try this now?
You see that the screen we are getting.
Yeah, this is much better.
Okay. So are you done with that? Okay, I see one vote now. So do you see those options now?
Oh no, I see. I can see that one vote is there, but
Which link you are using? I just sent the second link, right?
oh, second link. Okay. Yes, now you should get.
Okay. Now the next thing is how frequently we actually want to meet. I'm okay either ways.
So okay, if we have topics, then maybe weekly is good, but accordingly we can decide.
Okay. And then how long we should plan these sessions? 30 minutes is more than sufficient, 45 or an hour?
As we are meeting weekly, I think 30 minutes is enough.
Okay. And then what topics you want to talk about?
Mostly AL, but I am going with both.
Okay. And would you be interested to be a presenter? And the idea is that as much as I can do, I'll do. But
Yeah.
this is not kind of my show that where I want to run it individually.
If some functional, I mean, I can, but depends on topics. If I get the topic that suits my expertise, I will definitely. So yes,
Sounds good, man. Thank you. So that's it, I guess, for the questions. And maybe next time when we have more people, I'll add more topics or questions into it. So what I was discussing last time was about synchronizing table schema. Did you ever heard about this topic?
actually I missed you last session, but I was interested, but I was not sure about the timing and others. So if you give some few minutes, just back idea on the last session, will be good.
No, so that was not actually a session. We were doing a Q&A. Somebody had a problem around this, and I thought it'll help because this feature or this this feature will be required when you plan your customer to upgrade them or move them from a CAL environment to AL environment. And it was actually introduced in NAV 2015. And most of the people actually don't know about it, but it's a very great feature within NAV and now in BC also. So do you ever work with, let's say, 2009 or previous versions in past?
Actually, I have started with 2009 R2, and actually I was very comfortable on that. I
Okay.
did 3 installations, and I
Mm-hmm.
have also worked some outsourcing job for now. I mean, 3.5 and 4,
Okay.
and then currently working in a project with BC, that is 14.
Okay. Tanya, your experience with NAV?
Yeah, but I haven't worked with these table schemas, though I just only just about it that yeah, these this is basically performed by the instance, right? That connects to the business database.
Kind of, yeah.
So just I know the gist of it, but I have not, I've just not gone into it so in depth.
Okay. So I'll go through some slides and then also a quick demo that I have prepared, and I'll share all the content at the end of the meeting.
All right.
It'll be placed on a link so that you can try it at your, you know,
Yeah.
on your systems when you have time.
Okay.
So let's start with understanding what is table schema.
Mm-hmm.
So a table schema is kind of a combination of all your table details, which includes your table properties, the fields in table, the data type of those fields, the length, the all the properties of your table and all your table fields. And the only key that impacts table schema is the primary key.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you design a table in Dynamics NAV or in Business Central, the schema contain of all these following parameters. And anytime there is a change in the schema, there was something else that we used to do in past till 2013, and then there is a significant change how we do it in currently in the newer versions of NAV or Business Central. So historically, before the table sync schema was introduced in Dynamics NAV or Business Central, people used to handle these changes manually. And to give you a reference, and maybe Sahid will understand it, that if you have to delete a table in 2009 or delete a field in 2009, you first had to make sure that the field or the table have no data in any company in the database. So if you have 5 companies and there's a table that you want to delete, you first need to change every company and delete the data from that table before you can actually delete that object. Okay. Some people used to write code to automatically do it, like do a find first and then
Mm-hmm.
delete all and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
The table sync schema was actually introduced in 2013 R2, but it actually became powerful with NAV 2015 and higher, where with NAV 2015 and later versions, whenever you make a schema change on a table, you get following options, which is now with validation, later, and force. And because of kind of not clear knowledge about these three options, and then there are other options also behind the scenes, people kind of get confused sometimes that which one they choose and what will be the impact of these options.
Okay. I basically go
So
with the first one.
yeah, and
Is
that's
it?
okay.
Yeah.
That's safer enough.
Yeah.
So let's understand why these three options and what these three options do. The three options that we saw in the earlier screen were now with validation, later, and force. And the difference is that when you choose now with validation, a system checks that the changes that you're doing are additive or destructive. Additive means that you are adding new fields, or you are changing the field length or increasing the field length, whereas the destructive changes are like reducing a field length or deleting a field or changing the data type of field or changing the primary key of field. In any of those cases, that is considered as destructive, and if there is a destructive change, then you get an error message in now with validation
Okay.
option, and we'll see what that means. In later, what happens is the schema validation doesn't happen at that time when you're trying to save your object, and at that point there is a mishmash between your schema in your development environment and your SQL server. So development environment will have a different schema, whereas SQL server table will have a different schema. And the last one is force, and that's where you need to think twice before you choose force. What force does, that it forces that new schema that you have changed into SQL server, which means that if there are any destructive changes in the changes that you have done, system will delete the data in that columns or in that table. So force is, if you are very sure that what you are doing while you are choosing force, then and only then choose force. Otherwise, stay away from force.
Yeah.
So let's see a quick demo about these three schema types, and let me open my development environment and minimize this. Where is my development environment? Oh. So this is Business Central 14, no objects modified, all base Microsoft object. What I'm doing is I'm importing a object set which includes a table, two tables, and one code unit, and we'll talk about it in a minute what they do. So anytime you import an object which have a table in it, then you get this option during import, which is now with validation, later, and force. So right now I'm choosing now with validation. That takes some time, and it should validate my schema. Okay, and that's done. Just give me a minute. Some people are having problems in joining. I'll just share the link. It's possible. Okay. Do anyone of you have the meeting invite? Let me copy this. Not getting in. Okay, this is not. Okay. Okay, copy link. Let me send it to person who is looking for it. Okay. So yeah, sorry for that. And let me filter those objects. So these are the three objects that I've imported right now. And if you see, this has two fields, code and description. This also have two fields, code and description. Now, first, what we want to understand is what now with validation will do, what later will do, and what force will do. So just for the demo purposes, I'll just import some data into these tables, and I'll explain about this part later. So what actually I did, and we'll talk about it in a minute, is I entered some dummy data into these two tables so that we understand what that means when we do these changes. So there is this data into this table, 90,001, 90,000, and also in 90,001. So now to understand what now with validation means is if I add a field into this, let's say demo field 1 of type boolean, and if I save it, I'm doing an additive change, and that's okay with now with validation. Okay. So when I click OK, this field will be added into my SQL Server table. And let's see that the table name is table1 demo. So let me filter. So if you see, the demo1 field is there, right? Now, what happens if I remove this field and try now with validation? It gives me an error that you are doing a destructive change, which is not allowed. Okay. The schema synchronization may result in deleted data because there is a destructive change that is being seen, which is that you're deleting a field. Now let's understand what happens when I do a later. When I choose later and click OK, my table is compiled, right? But now in development environment, I see two fields, whereas if I refresh it here on my SQL Server, I'll still see three fields. So there is a mishmash between my NAV schema and my SQL schema because I chose later. Okay.
Yes.
So the only way to make it available there is either I force it at this point, and we'll understand why we should not use force later. But right now, if I try to run this table, it will give me an error because the schema is not matching with the SQL schema. So the only option that I have now is choose force. So when I click force and say OK, And now if I come and refresh it here, that field has been removed and my nav and SQL schema are in sync. Okay. So those are the impact of three different options that we saw while importing a table, which is now with validation will stop you if there is a destructive change, and later will make sure that you can compile it at that point, but the table is not available to be used because there is a mismatch between your nav schema or development environment schema and your SQL schema. And then force will not care anything and will forcefully change the schema that you have in cal in your SQL server. Okay, so let's move ahead, and if I can reach there in my slide deck. Okay, so now as we saw that destructive changes causes problem, so let's understand what are destructive changes. These are the 8 destructive changes that Microsoft defines, which is if you are trying to delete a table, or if you are trying to delete a field, or if you are changing a field data type or a field class from normal to flow field, or changing a SQL data type property of the field, if you are decreasing the field length of data, changing the length but actually reducing it, not increasing it. Increasing the length is considered as additive instead of destructive. And if you are changing the primary key of a table, as I said earlier, or if you are changing the ID of the table. Now let's understand why you will have to do destructive changes, and this is where we will talk about why it becomes important to do destructive changes. When you plan to move your customer data from CAL to AL word, or converting their customs into extensions, you may want to renumber the table IDs or field IDs, or you may want to re-engineer how that table was written in CAL, then it will be written in AL. In those situations, you will have to do destructive changes, which can be either of those. But at the same time, you may want to handle the data in a different way while you are doing destructive changes. And Microsoft have a way that you can use to handle these destructive changes in a much better way. And that is using upgrade code unit. So there is a new subtype added in NAV 2015 for code units. Normally when you create a code unit, that is of subtype normal. And then there is a specific one called upgrade. Then there is one called test. So there are different types of code unit that you can create in your NAV. But the type upgrade or subtype upgrade code units will be able to handle your destructive changes. So as I said earlier, you can use upgrade code unit when you make changes to table definition, or in Microsoft Dynamics NAV on your range, or you'll be using these upgrade code unit during an upgrade. But upgrade code units are not only meant for upgrade, they are also meant to handle destructive changes. And we'll see what that means. A upgrade code unit can help you in moving the data between tables, can help you to redesign your tables by keeping your data intact. And the way it does it, that it have some special kind of functions. One of them being table sync setup. Then there is one function called as check precondition. and then two specific function related to data handling, which is upgrade per company and upgrade per database. And then normal functions are the functions that you write in normal code units. So the code unit of subtype upgrade can be used to handle destructive changes. And let's see what possibilities we have with upgrade code unit to handle data. Upgrade code unit gives you flexibility with 4 different types of table sync setup ways, which being a check, move, copy, or force. A check means that the uh, table change that you are doing, you can check it that will it cause harm to your data or not. So if you, let's say if your text field had a length 50, but the maximum data in that field was of 30 character, and you try to reduce the length of that field from 50 to 30, by default, your table sync schema, that window that we saw, will give you an error that it's a destructive change. But if you write an upgrade code unit and say check for that particular table, it will not give you an error because the data, the new size that you are giving still doesn't deletes any data. The other one is move. This scenario you can use when you want to renumber your table, let's say from 50,000 to 60,000, and want to keep the same schema, then you can use the mode move. It will automatically move the data from table A to table B at different ID for all the companies. So you don't have to write scripts for it. Then there is an option to copy. The difference between move and copy is that copy copies the selected field that you want to copy into a different table. The scenario is that if you have it, if you have some fields in the base Microsoft table which you want to re-engineer, so before you import your new object, the re-engineered object, you want that data outside so that you can write it back into the new format. In those scenarios, you can use copy. And last is the force, which you should be using again with all your thoughts in your mind that will that be right or not. It will do the same thing as we saw in the last demo. It will delete the data from that field or table where the force is written. Any questions at this point before we see a demo of this?
No.
Okay. So let's quickly see another demo. If I can find my development environment. Yeah. So right now for demo 2, I'll be deleting these objects from my database. And because I just use it for demo, I can choose force. Okay. And then when I import my demo 2 objects, it has two base table modified, item and sales header, and there is a new table at 50,000. So that's get in, and let me filter out objects and show you what's inside those. So in table 27, there are 5 fields that I have added: code, int, decimal, boolean, and time. And the same fields are also available in table 36. And then there is a new table with 6 fields. So as I did earlier, I'll just run a script which will load the data into all these fields before we actually start our process. Okay. Okay. So what happened after my script is ran is I got data into all the fields and all the table, and I'll show you in a minute. Yeah. So the table 50,000 have this data now on all the fields, and let's see one of the base table. Base item table will have a demo field. So if you see, all these fields have some random values. Okay. So now the scenario that we are trying to handle at this point is first to see what happens when I do a field length increase. If I change the field length of this 30 to 50, this will not be considered as destructive change, as I said earlier, and system will be able to apply this schema change without any error with validation. Now if I plan to reduce the field length back to 30 and try to save it, system will warn me that it's a destructive change. Now to handle this, I can write an upgrade routine, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Let me import the part2 objects, which skips this table and imports only these tables and this code unit. Okay. So what I'm trying to do at this point, that I want to move the custom field data in item table and store them in a separate table so that I can rewrite the logic that I want to after this data has been moved. For that, what I'll use, as I said earlier, is a copy statement. So for the copy statement, the prerequisite is that you should have a table with the fields that you want to move out from a base table or from a custom table with the primary key of that table. So what I've done is I've created a table at 90,002 called upgrade item. That has the primary key of the table, which is number in case of item, and then all the custom fields that I wanted. Okay. And then I also created an upgrade sales header, which have the primary key of sales header, which in this case is document type and number, and all the fields that I want out of that table. And let me know if any of this confuses you at any point. And right now I'm commenting this, and I'll tell you what that is. So as I was saying earlier, to reduce this length, if I do with validation, I get this error. So to solve this issue, that I know that the data that's inside this field still will be able to reside in it with the 30 field length, I'll have to write a upgrade logic for it. And what that upgrade logic will be is here. So if you see this code unit, it has a subtype of upgrade. Okay. A subtype of upgrade gives you more functionality when you try to add functions. So when I try to add a function in this code unit, let's say ABC, and I go to properties, there is a function type that pops up which have these options. One is normal, which is your normal function that you would have created in any code unit. Then there is one which is called as upgrade per company. That applies for the tables or for the code that you want to run for each company in the database, and then there is one upgrade per database. In this function, you can write the code for tables who are data per company no, like your printer selection table or your users table. So those tables which are set to data per company no, can, if you have to write any logic, you need to write in this function. And then there is a check precondition. This function type is used to do a check before this upgrade code unit actually runs. So if you have some condition that you want to check, you can use this function. And last but not least is table sync setup. And this is what we are going to talk about in this particular section right now. So when you create a table sync setup function, it also have a prerequisite or a mandatory thing that it should have a parameter of a table called table sync setup. And then you can write, you need to have a code unit reference of data upgrade management in this code unit, because that's where system finds the reference for table sync. And then you can write data upgrade management dot set table sync schema setup for the table that you want. Which table we were changing? 50,000, right? We're changing the length from 50 to 30. So I'll add the reference of the table that I'm using, and then the other parameter, if you can see on my screen, or should I zoom it? Let me zoom it. That's big. Okay. So if you see, the other parameter is upgrade table ID, which in this case I have 0. And what I want to do is I want to use a table sync schema setup dot mode of type check. What happens when I do a check, and now when I try to compile my object, system will automatically identify that this is an upgrade code unit and will read the content of function type table sync setup, either they are 1 or 2, and see that is there a definition for this table, and if yes, then follows that operation that is defined. So now if I go back and say that I want to reduce it by 30 and save it, now with validation, it will apply that. Because what compiler did behind the scene, the system checked or compared the data of the phone number field and see that does it fit in 30 or not. To see when it breaks, I'll reduce it to 1, and now I'll do a now with validation. This time the check failed because the length of the phone number will not be set at length 1. 30 is a valid option and it will allow it because the data sets in that. And why this is happening? Because we have an upgrade logic which says anytime you sync this table, make sure to check that my changes are not doing any destructive data change. Is check clear, or anybody has any confusion?
Yeah.
So that's how you use check. That checks your data and sees and compare the change that you're doing, and then verifies that will your change make sense or not. Now coming back to the other topic that we were talking about, or other options that we have. What I want to do is I want to move the data from this table for these fields into a table called upgrade item. which have the primary key and all the custom field. And same I want to do for 36. The other thing that I'm doing in my change is I'm renumbering the field in this table. So the new object that I'm going to import will have the field IDs change to a different number. And as we all know, that field ID change is also destructive. So what I want to do is I want to move this data out into this new table called upgrade new item in the same field ID. So for these two fields, I'm copying selective data. And for this table, I'm doing the move. So what I have written in my upgrade code unit in the table sync, if you see, is for table 27 and 36, copy the data in 90,002 and copy the data in 90,003. But for 50,000, I'm saying move the data to 90,004 because I know that the next object that I'm going to import will change the schema of 50,000. Okay. So now before we run this or before we actually do this, the sync only get activated when you do a change. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to import table 50,000 with the new schema that I'm thinking, and I'll choose the option later. I don't want changes to go to SQL because there is a destructive change. When I choose later, my nav schema for this table is right now change from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's now changed to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And there is a new field 100. Okay. And my schema in CAL is different from my schema in SQL. The other thing that I'm going to do is to call my sync is I'm going to delete these fields from this table and choose schema option as later. Then I'm also going to delete the fields from table 36, my custom fields, and choose a schema sync later. So right now, my schema for these three tables does not match to my SQL schema. Whenever you do something like this, before you write your upgrade logic, which I have already written, so I'll comment it out, you need to check what kind of changes are you importing or have you done using PowerShell. Okay. So you import the module or you can use the administration cell. It's up to you. Once that get imported, you run the sync nav tenant and run it. And it'll tell you what destructive changes you are doing. So it's telling me that I have deleted these fields from 27. I have deleted these fields from table 36. And I have also deleted these fields from table 50,000. So now I am sure after reading this that whatever I am doing is the changes that I wanted to do. Because when you import a new object, maybe it has other changes. And you need to be sure that the changes that you are handling are your changes. So once you are sure about the changes that you are doing are your changes, then you can write your upgrade code unit like I have written here. And then either you can run the table sync from here or you can run the table sync from here. It's up to you. Anytime you run your table sync, the operations that you have written in the function type table sync setup will get executed, which means the data on these fields will move to this table and this table, and in this case it will move, and in this case it will copy. So let's run the sync. If you want to see the table data first, let's see it before we run this. So the table is empty right now, and all these tables are empty right now. So now I'm doing a schema change for all table with validation. Once I do that, it will run the commands which I have written inside that for all the companies in your database. You don't have to switch company and do things. This upgrade routine or upgrade code unit change completes the step and makes your database schema as operational. So now let's see what happened with that change. The fields from these tables were deleted. Very good. This table should be empty because I have moved the data. And these three tables should have data now. If you see, all that data has been moved here from 27, 36, and also from 50,000 ID. Now on 50,000, what I did is I actually just wanted to change the table field IDs, nothing else, no major changes. So in the upgrade code unit, as we discussed earlier, there is also a possibility to write functions like upgrade per company or upgrade per database. What I'm doing in this function is I'm checking that the new table 90,004, if it has any data, then move that data into the new table that I have, which is 50,000 with the new ID, and just transfer that data back. All the functions of type upgrade per company and upgrade per database will be called when you run the data upgrade function. When you start the data upgrade function, all the functions with type data per company or data upgrade per company or upgrade per database will be executed for all the companies or one company based on what function it is, and with the code inside that will be executed. When I say tools data upgrade start, the data from 90,004 will move back to 50,000 automatically using this function. Let's try that. When you say start, the first thing you need to make sure that you have no client running, otherwise it will give you an error. And then it asks you how you want to run it, parallelly or serial. Parallel means that if there are 7 companies, each function will run parallelly on all the companies. Serially means all the functions will run one by one in each company. So I'll choose parallel to run it faster, and then show progress will show you the progress, and continue on error will continue if there is an error message. And I'll hit OK, and it's running. Once it's completed, we'll have data back in 50,000. Let's run it. And you'll see that the data is back here because I didn't do a repeat until it only brought one data. I didn't do it. I did a repeat until, oh, but I had this wrongly written. So let me correct it. And let me delete that data so that I can run it again. Okay. Data upgrade start. Yes. Close the client. Yes. Parallel. Okay. And there is a problem. If there is a problem, you can always come here and see get nav data upgrade error only your service name, and it says that the record in one of the table already exists because it's per company, so there is one record which is already added. So just let me check. Okay, let me run it. Yes, and let me stop it, and then let me start it again. Okay. Okay, so that's done. Let's run the table, and it should have all the data that was stored earlier in 90,004 back with the new table schema. Okay, so now let's understand why this is important at this point. And the reason is that the future, which is AL going forward, does not allow you to do any destructive changes. There's not a possibility that you can do any destructive changes. Even the upgrade code units in future does not have a table sync setup function. As you can see, there is only on check precondition per database per company, on upgrade per database per company, on validate, and on run. There is no table sync setup as we saw in CAL word. Okay, so that's where it becomes very important when you have to migrate your data to AL. You want to keep your schema as much as possible in sync with the new AL version, and all those renumbering, table renumbering, field renumbering, you should be doing it into the cal environment. And using these functions and upgrade code units, you can actually manipulate your data as you want. But as upgrade code unit seems pretty cool and comes as a power, there are certain responsibility that you have when you use upgrade code unit, and you need to keep these things in your mind while using upgrade code units. One of them being that you should always choose force very wisely before deciding force as an option, either while saving a change in the table or in the upgrade code unit. Think twice that you actually want to use force or not, because you cannot roll back anything that you have forced out. Upgrade code units, as seems so cool and powerful, they can be little tricky, and they should be deleted once your operation is completed. And I'll give you an example after this. Always review your sync issues as we did in PowerShell before you write your upgrade code unit, because let's suppose you were writing the upgrade logic of for saying force just for 5 fields as we see in the example, but there might be another field which has been changed by someone else which you are not aware of. So always first check using PowerShell that what sync issues you have, so then you can be sure that if I write a copy or a move or a force or check, I know what I'm doing. So first review your sync issues from PowerShell before you make them into your database. As I said earlier, do all your renumbering and schema changes in CAL if possible. Don't try or plan your changes once you move into the AL world. Now, the last thing before I end presenting is about where upgrade table can be risky. Now, if you see right now, if I change this, if I have an upgrade code unit which had something like this, let's suppose, if I have something like this for table 36, and I have done what I wanted to do, and I forgot to delete this code unit, upgrade code unit. If I come to this database and add a field, which is okay, compile it, very good. If I delete it, and I have, remember, I have upgrade code unit which I didn't delete it, and inside that there is written table sync mode force, and there was data inside this 50,000 field, and I delete this, and I say now with validation, it will not give you an error because you have an upgrade code unit where you have written force. So as soon as your work is done, based on whatever you wanted to do in terms of renumbering, redesigning your fields or tables, make sure to delete your upgrade code unit. Otherwise, anybody making any change which can be harmful will come to this function and read about that table. So if I try it on any other table than 36 right now, I'll get an error message. So let's say if I add a field 50,000 here, saved, delete, save, I get an error message because there is no definition for this table in the upgrade code unit that I have. So always delete your upgrade code unit once you are done with whatever you are planning to do. Okay, and then here are some references where you can read more about it. I'll put the slide deck and the objects so that you can try it in one of the shared drive, and I'll share the link with you. So yeah, that's it for today. I guess that's, if you have any questions, I'll be open for that. Questions?
No question regarding, what you did, but can I ask something different?
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
actually, can we schedule? Based on the topics we needed. Like I needed some topics on project or job implementations in BC for construction company.
I have very limited knowledge. I might be risky to try with anything on the functional areas, and to be true, I
Okay,
don't want to give any false hopes, but I have very
yeah,
limited
fine.
knowledge in that area. As in, if anybody else is ready to present about it, I have no problems and I'm open for it. I'll be maybe more open towards technical areas that you need help on, uh, more or less. My main work is around upgrades. If anything around upgrades, I'll be more than happy to talk about.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Any other questions, Tanya, Priyaranjan?
No, sir. This was very much knowledgeable.
Huh? Thanks. Any other topics, as in, do you want to pick any topics in the chat? Put anything, suggestions that I can think of?
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about can we talk about little as in Docker?
Okay. I don't know. Did you check the YouTube channel that I have? There is plenty of stuff about Docker. And
Yeah,
once you go through it, and if you still have questions, I'll be open for that. There are certain changes that recently has been introduced in Dockers, and I will already schedule some videos that I'll put it over there. But if you go through those videos and still it is not clear, then let me know.
actually, I have watched those videos, and there are some challenges. So I just wanted to, clarify. Okay, this is like that, and this. I just want to know what challenges I was facing so that I can clarify with you.
Okay.
So
So
like not today, maybe next time
yeah,
when I meet. So yeah, I have done the Docker and I have set up also that Docker, whatever that is. But yeah, there were some challenges, so I just wanted to ask questions regarding that. That's all. I did saw your both of the videos regarding Docker.
that's not a problem. We can maybe keep something as Docker Q&A next week if
Yeah,
nothing comes up.
yeah,
Anything else?
Yes, I have. If I have another question actually
Go
regarding.
ahead.
I mean, I have started Visual Studio Code,
Hmm.
and I'm facing some issues. In second phase, that means the image importing something like that.
Image importing. I
I'm not remembering, but image, not image, maybe it's another thing.
Okay.
So it will be better if you, give us a short demo on using or starting Visual Studio Code.
Okay. That makes sense. Priyaranjan, any thoughts?
Uh, Actually, this was regarding purely upgradation, and I am into a functional, so I don't have any question regarding this right now. But maybe in the next session, I will just as per our previous discussion, if anybody with some presentation about yeah, or same see how you can connect with Navision. So that will be useful for me at least as a functional. So right now I don't have any question for this.
Yeah, sorry,
One
man. Yeah, go ahead.
uh, one one question from my side. I actually today I was facing for one of my client. Actually, service was running okay,
Mm-hmm.
and there are two database. Both services, database services are running. Okay, but
Mm-hmm.
when I am trying to connect with RTC, one database is getting connected, but other was not getting connected, showing that you can contact with your administrator. Okay, so that I couldn't find out. Even in a services, I checked services both are running. So later on, I asked with my technical team, and he resolved that, but couldn't give me any particular reasons. Even I have started the SQL. Even I have started the server also, but the problem was not resolved. So, what can be expected problem? Is there any idea?
No, always, and what version of NAV or Business Central you are using?
NAV version was 2016 and it was the Indian localization.
Okay, anytime when you have a problem like this, always look for event log. or event viewer on the service tier. Okay, wherever your
Okay.
service has been installed. And if it is nav, I guess if I'm not wrong, 2016 or higher, Microsoft have added a separate group for all the issues that are reported specific to Dynamics NAV.
Okay.
And if you click here, let me see if it opens. Yeah, so inside application and service log, there is Microsoft, and then there is Dynamics NAV.
Okay.
So when you click on server administration admin, you will see all the error message only related to nav. And maybe the first one, as you see here, doesn't make any sense. But if you choose
Okay.
the another one, you will see one of the error which will make some sense,
Okay.
which will give you all the detail. Like in this case, it says cannot connect to SQL. Either the SQL server not started, database does not exist, or proper permission is not given. So event log can give you all the logical error messages that you are trying to read when there is a service issue.
Okay. 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 Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, my question is actually regarding this Visual Studio Code. I was unable to download the symbols.
Okay. And so yeah, let's do next week a Q&A. No planned event. Tanya can ask about Dockers. We can see your issue with your Visual Studio Code
Yes,
or
yes. Okay.
any other things.
Yeah, it will be nice. Very nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So look out for an invite, possibly by tomorrow, on all the, preferably on Facebook and LinkedIn,
All right.
and do register for it so that I can plan based on how many people are attending. It was a surprise that 18 people did register, but we 3 met, but that's okay. That's not a problem. And I'll also add a page and maybe a Microsoft form about pre-questions. If you can fill that, it'll help. So this is the form. I'll put the link where you can add a detail about the question and nav version, so that I have an idea what kind of questions we are going to talk about.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. I'll make sure that it gets added in the email, or I'll maybe add it on one of my, in one of the page in my blog, so that it makes it easier.
Okay.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds good.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this recording will be available on the YouTube channel, and the links about where you can find objects that we use in the demo today will be in the description section. The slide deck and everything will be there.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Have a great day, guys and girls. Bye.
Thank you very much. See you.